Right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this webinar that we are organizing here today, this Wednesday afternoon. This is part of the EU-India webinar series that we are kickstarting today. And the first of these webinars is on the subject of European Union action on research and innovation to combat COVID-19. We have a very good panel lined up here today. We have colleagues from the European Commission headquarters in Brussels, Dr. Rosanna Damario, senior expert from the Health Directorate of the DG Research and Innovation. We also have senior policy officer from the DG Research and Innovation in charge of open science, Mr. Michael Arentoft. We have two colleagues from EU member state missions from our embassies here in Delhi. So from the Embassy of Spain, we have Mr. Adrian Guttrell. And from the Embassy of Denmark, we have Dr. Jacob Williams Auberg. And we have a well-known consultant who is working with us on the project called EU-India Innovation Partnerships, Ms. Lena Pesce-Thomas from Bangalore. So all our five panelists are here. They're going to discuss different topics related to the overall theme of what has been the EU's action on research and innovation to combat COVID-19. This discussion is going to be moderated by my colleague, Ms. Tanya Fredericks. She is the Research and Innovation Counselor at the European Union delegation here in Delhi. She will be giving the welcome statement and opening remarks. But before I pass on the floor to her, three quick housekeeping announcements I would like to make. Number one is this is a very warm welcome to all the participants, all the members of the audience who have taken the time out to log in, to connect with us. And in order for us to have a good experience using this technology, it is highly requested if all the members of the audience, once the session starts, if you can one by one, switch off your cameras and keep your microphone on mute, so that at any point of time, the only microphone which should be on in the room should be the microphone for the speaker. So, when we move from one speaker to the other, the host will kind of, keep everybody else muted and only the speaker will remain unmuted. That's number one. The second announcement is with regards to the data privacy law that we're following in the EU. And this is for the information of all the panelists in particular, that we are going to record this conversation. We have taken your consent, and also for the general information of the members of the audience that this entire discussion is being recorded, audio recording and video recording. Third announcement is with regards to the questions and answers. So during the course of the session, when the speakers are giving their presentation, you might come up with a question, but we don't have the possibility to actually ask live questions in a two-way audio video. Not been able to organize that. But the second best option is if you can kindly write down your question and put it into the chat box which you see on the right hand side of your screen, and you can send that question to Tanya. So you instead of sending the chat, so when you're sending your question, please make sure it is going to Ms. Tanya Fredericks. She is the one who will be actually moderating the Q&A. If you can't find her name in the list, you can also send it to my colleague Vivek Tham. Vivek is our colleague, senior advisor in the research and innovation team. So you can send your question to one of them. Don't send your question to everybody. So when you are sending a chat, just make sure who is your question going out to. So with these three housekeeping announcements, I would very warmly welcome you all once again and give the floor to Tanya to take the discussion forward, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anil, for having helped us in setting this up and putting the parameters or the housekeeping rules for this exercise. It's important to make it a success in the short time that we get allocated, because I believe that we have lots to say, lots to share, and a huge agenda. On this note, on my turn, a very warm welcome and thank you in the first place to my dear colleagues, panelists, but also to the but also to the attendees, because without attendees, no round table. I'm the head of section of research and innovation of the delegation of the European Union to India. And in that capacity, I'm very glad to moderate, as you said, Anil, the first webinar in a series of webinars as part of the EU public diplomacy. And when we had to look for a topic,
Cannot hear.
I've never seen such a consensus than do it on science, do it on research, do it, show what we do on research and innovation. So here we are, and this is also important why we are here. It is today not to showcase, but to share with you in a very humble way what the response of the European Union is to this global crisis. And I also think that there has never been such a crisis that is so global as COVID-19. Given my age, I can say that we have that is true. Also, the beauty of the technology does not allow us to see who attends and where people are from, but I can say that we resemble today people from all corners of India and from all corners on Europe. Again, that, not to forget, is thanks to the research and innovation efforts that we are so far in technological development. But I want to stop here, give the floor to these eminent panelists who are all very busy, but we're very happy to contribute to that first public diplomacy on science diplomacy. Dr. Rosanna Damario, good afternoon, and thank you very much for joining. No surprise that you will be asked to open this roundtable, because you are really in the heart of what is to be done to combat this COVID-19. You are being looked at the research efforts, the innovation that is being done at European level on all kinds of health issues. But I believe that lately it has been mainly, if not only, on how to combat COVID-19. So thank you very much to be with us. And if possible, in the 10 minutes that is allocated to you, if you could outline what we are doing at European level, where we come from, and also maybe if you could add a little bit of where we go or should go. Thank you so much, Rosanna.
Thank you, Tanya, and thank you to all the colleagues from the New Delhi delegation for organizing this webinar. Indeed, I work on international cooperation with colleagues working on health, research and innovation within the Directorate General for Research and Innovation of the European Commission. And let me start by saying that this outbreak that, of course, has caught all of us by surprise, is something on which we have been working very quickly. But apart from that, already in past years, the European Commission has been investing quite a lot of money on infectious diseases. For instance, we have calculated that in the framework program 7 and Horizon 2020, so more or less between the period from 2007 to 2019, we have invested in all of our programs, so the European Commission, but also public-private initiatives, public-public initiatives. We have invested approximately 4 billion euro on infectious diseases. And on the other hand, we have also invested specifically in previous outbreaks, in particular Ebola and Zika, launching specific calls. So when this outbreak started, but before it was declared an outbreak, discussion between the European Commission and other international funding bodies has, of course, started. And this is why the European Commission launched on the 30th of January, the very day when the outbreak was declared by WHO, a call for expression of interest. It was clearly an emergency call, and it was launched in a very short period of time, so prepared during the month of January, with a deadline on the 12th of February, so with a very short deadline. Despite the short deadline, we received tens of proposals, and out of those, 18 have been selected for funding. So these projects have been selected and have practically started, most of them early April. So this is the current situation. In parallel, there have been other initiatives that are currently ongoing. For example, the Innovative Medicines Initiative. This is the public-private initiative between the European Commission and the European pharmaceutical companies, have also launched another call, excuse me, on the 31st, with deadline on the 31st of March. And for this one, there are many applications have also been received, and they are going under evaluation this week. So we expect to have results in the next few weeks. But there are also many other initiatives. For example, the public initiative called EDCTP, European and Developing Countries Clinical Trials Partnership, is also launching specific calls on COVID-19. And this is a public partnership with sub-Saharan countries. On top of that, for instance, there have been other type of initiatives, such as specific funds provided through the European Investment Bank to a European company called CureVac. This is a company that had won a European prize some years ago. So the initiatives are in many directions, including another call specifically for small and medium enterprises, which has also been launched during the month of March, where 1,000 of proposals on COVID-19 have been received. And again, these proposals are currently under evaluation. So initiatives are in very many directions, but also what the Commission has been looking at is also to see whether initiatives funded in the past, so projects funded in previous years, may be useful to tackle COVID-19. So how projects that are relevant for the area may help to address this global and huge problem, of course. And in parallel, the European Commission is also looking at all of the aspects covering COVID-19. So not only health-related projects, but also projects in other areas, because of course we have to tackle very soon also the consequences of the pandemic in the population. So like the socioeconomic consequences, for instance. Now, these are some of the initiatives that have been launched, but in particular, the Commission and Member States have signed a common document that is called ERA versus Corona. ERA stands for European Research Area, and it's really a document where all the member states of the European Union and the European Commission really declare that they need to work together, they need to share information, they need to establish a common platform where individual initiatives launched at national level may come together. And of course, little by little, this will also concern third countries, so countries outside of the European Union, because we want that the platform also is something offering the opportunity for countries outside the European Union to be part of that. Let me also mention, excuse me again, another initiative, it's a network, it's called Global Research Collaboration for Infectious Diseases Preparedness. This is a network called, the acronym is GLOPIDAR. This GLOPIDAR has been really essential. This is a network of 29 members with WHO and other members that are observers, and it has been excuse me, it has been instrumental in the sense that via GLOPIDAR, it has started immediately a discussion among funding agencies regarding what to do about COVID-19. So just to remind you, and since this meeting is taking place with India, the Indian Council of Medical Research, for instance, is part of GLOPIDAR. So the fact that the Commission could respond quickly and launch a call already on the 30th of January is also thanks to the links established within GLOPIDAR. So the discussions really has implied the involvement of many organizations, ministries, agencies around the world. And of course, there are other initiatives ongoing. For example, I could mention the group of 7 virologists that Commissioner President Ursula von der Leyen has established to give advice on what to do on this area. So the things to do are many, and of course there are many things to be done. Now the discussion is, as I said, to see what are the consequences, the socioeconomic consequences. So probably there will be projects in that area, but there is discussion also to have additional funding possibly for other calls. Everything under discussion these days. So these are very hectic and dynamic days, let's say, to see what else we can do in addition to what we are doing. And I think this is in a nutshell what the Commission is doing on health research. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rosanna. I'm privileged because I know on a daily basis, also I see from this site, 19,000 kilometers away from Brussels, what we are doing. But this was really a very comprehensive presentation. And I also extract from that the holistic approach, not focusing on one aspect, but on the various aspects and the increased coordination, and also working multilaterally. So those are kind of, if you would agree, the messages that we would like to share with India, and also stress here that India, in fact, is directly and indirectly part of our narrative of combating globally the research and innovation actions. I trust you would agree on that. What I'd also would like to say is that we've seen from Rosanna that we do a lot on what we call research and innovation itself, but other aspects are also important, framework conditions that those that do the research and innovation respect, to valorize the results and also to speed up the results to finding solutions. And I believe that Michael Arenhoff, who was my colleague in Brussels, who has now shifted to that very important topic of open science and access to data in his domain, has also lots to say on the importance of those framework conditions and how that helps combating COVID-19. Michael, can I give you the floor? Can you share with us what these principles have to do with this pandemic? Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Tanya. Also for giving us this opportunity to display the many EU actions that we're doing, as you said, in terms of the framework conditions. So how is the research being done? How can we accelerate it? How can we assure that we have the proper impact, both in terms of quality, uptake, and rollout. So first, to start with the core of open science, where you find the early sharing and the open access, not only to scientific publications, but maybe more importantly in these days, also to the research data and to other outputs, such as the software and the models that are needed to work on the previous findings and work on previous data and new data. The underlying motivation for us to push open science as an approach is that rapid and open sharing of knowledge and data is both more efficient and also more effective. On the one hand, it greatly accelerates the research and the discovery. And on the other hand, it also increases, we have seen that, the quality of the results and the robustness of the results. And this then contributes to an effective response to the coronavirus emergency, to understand the disease as soon as possible, and to develop very effective diagnostics, treatments, and vaccines. In the last 2 months, we have seen an acceleration of the uptake of open science. And let me highlight 2 major achievements of EU action on open science. First, there was the commitment on the 16th of March of more than 40 leading scientific publishers to make all of their coronavirus-related publications and the underlying data immediately accessible in the PubMed Central Repository and other public repositories on biomedical and life science journal literature. Now, this commitment followed a very strong request from the European Commission, from governments around the world, including India, and from science leaders to enhance the ability of researchers to both access, but also to reuse and analyze or text mine published articles on coronaviruses. Already at the end of January, the WHO and the Global Preparedness Monitoring Board called for all relevant information about the outbreak to be shared very rapidly and very openly. And in the following days and weeks, so during February, the European Commission, with the US Office of Science and Technology Policy, and also with the Wellcome Trust, issued open letters for sharing publications and data. I have to say that India was also part of this push. The principal science advisor to the government of India, Vijay, has been very active. And furthermore, as a general supporter of international cooperation India has signed up to the Plan S commitment of research funders to accelerate the transition to full and immediate open access to scientific publications. I should also say that India is part of the international COVID-19 pledging initiative that will start on the 4th of May. And Rosanna has already mentioned India as a member of GLOBID-R, the Global Research Collaboration for Infectious Disease Preparedness. The second major achievement that I would like to highlight was the launch last week on the 20th of April of the European COVID-19 Research Data Platform. This is a platform for researchers to share, to store, analyze, process, and access the research data on the disease. It's a joint effort by the European Commission and the European Bioinformatics Institute of the European Molecular Biology Lab, so EMBL-EBI. We are now in a phase of extending the platform by asking relevant European, national, and community initiatives, infrastructures, and projects for them to contribute in terms of populating it with more data, more metadata, software, services, and tools. We're also working with the European Medicines Agency to help them develop their databases on clinical trials and on observational research, and linking that to the European Research Data Platform on COVID-19. The open air infrastructure, which is a European infrastructure, also has set up a portal that enables to discover COVID-19 research data and other outputs. And we have also worked with Zenodo at CERN to make sure that there is a dedicated space created where researchers can upload their relevant research outputs. On the data modeling and processing side, we are linking also the research data platform with ongoing efforts by supercomputing centers in Europe, so that we have the necessary computational power for typically AI-based approaches and processing of digital models of the protein of the virus, which are then matched against a database of active anti-molecules. And the final thing is that we have issued guidance to all our Horizon 2020 projects and beneficiaries on open access to publications, to research data and other relevant outputs. And we are promoting also internationally through the Research Data Alliance, who have set up a new working group to develop specific guidelines for how to deposit and share COVID-19 data. So if I can conclude, you can see that there is a very strong push by the EU for adopting open science practices to fight the COVID-19 pandemic. There is a strong push for early sharing and for open access to research data and findings, because at the end of the day, we want to help setting the right framework conditions to accelerate the development of diagnostics, treatments, and vaccines, and also to make sure that they have the highest quality and the highest robustness that we can hope to achieve. Thanks a lot, Tanya. Back to you.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Michael. It's much more dimensions and actions and activities than I thought. I more stick to the noble principles of open science, access to data. I would say that, you know, sometimes a crisis has also benefits, and that we start to see concretely also the benefits of this open access. It's been an uphill battle. So let's hope that we can also show that applying these principles in practice speeds up finding solutions, sharing information, as we should all do, because there's a lot of public investment that goes into that. I'm glad also to hear, and I take it that you confirm that also India is contributing to this open access, and again, this shows that what we are doing is not only EU, but offers a platform for a global. Thank you very much. As I said, very informative. I'm happy to take up further with you later on where we can strengthen the cooperation also with India on that front. Those who know me know that I'm always saying that there is no European Union without member states. And therefore, I am very pleased that at least 2 member states could join today to shed some light on how they combat COVID-19 from the research and innovation perspective. Adrian Gutierrez is the Science Innovation Counselor of the Embassy of Spain to India. We've been working for almost 4 years together, but Adrian has been so much longer working on India, with India, for India, and in the region. And I'd be very curious, Adrian, if you could share with us how your experience and expertise on cooperation with research and innovation can now be valorized to combat this COVID-19. And also, if you allow me to say, not only the experience and the expertise that you have internationally, but let's face it, Spain has been in the front line of this pandemic. Maybe again, we can extract some positive messages, lessons learned from that, that you will be happy to take an opportunity to share with us. Thank you so much, Adrian, that you could join this afternoon.
Welcome, Tania. Thank you very much for the introduction. Indeed, it's been some time that we've been working with each other, and even longer that I've been working following the research and innovation portfolio in the region. First of all, on behalf of the Embassy of Spain, I would like to start by acknowledging and appreciating the fact of having given us the opportunity to be here part of this EU virtual roundtable. Before getting to your points, I would like to start by making a few remarks on three aspects unveiled by this health crisis and that I feel are influencing research and both technological and non-technological innovation flows in Spain and by and large internationally. Number one would be the fact that this pandemic, of course, that has been repeated all over by the different panelists, is of global nature. It's happening to a larger or lesser degree all over the world and right in our homes. This has definitely led to an unprecedented wave of collective approach, of collective thinking on potential solutions that could help us to combat, mitigate, and monitor COVID-19. And this collective exchange has happened between exchanges by the research community, international research community, the big pharma and biotech companies, other related industries, and government officials. What is clear is that it's not possible to achieve the required critical mass in terms of investment, in terms of expertise, in terms of speed, if we work in silos and without solidarity. The second remark I wanted to do is the exposed vulnerability of the global supply chains and the controversial heavy reliance on imports of medical and critical equipment, such as medical protective equipment or diagnostics. This has started to translate into a second wave of business-led incremental innovations and tech adaptation projects aimed at providing fast responses and harvesting the low-hanging fruits. In Spain, there are currently institutional efforts to ramp up the domestic production capacity of medical protection equipment, such as respirators, ventilators, masks, and others. The third remark I wanted to make is that the severe patient care burden that the hospitals and the national healthcare systems have been facing and shortage of beds in conjunction with the national lockdowns have also sparked up by necessity innovative uses of existing infrastructures such as hotels, stadiums, and for instance, convention centers by accommodating patients. So with this context, I'll now come to your question. Number one, on the added value that Spain could bring to the table and some of the current tracks Spanish teams are leveraging to collaborate on research and innovation, on COVID research and innovation. Regretfully, as of now, as you had mentioned, Spain has been one of the most affected countries by a number of cases based on the official figures. On a positive note, could be any. Battling the spread of the disease is helping Spain to develop unique experience and expertise on the nature of this pandemic. Now that the patient care burden is decreasing in Spain, the country is putting an eye on a serological analysis to better understand the nature of the pandemic and provide more accurate scientific data to the government. The study started a couple of days ago and is part of the strategy of the government of Spain to plan for a gradual ease on the national lockdown restrictions and progressive return to normalcy. It will be conducted during the period of 3 weeks all over the national territory, taking samples from more than 36,000 households with a double objective. A, identify potential pockets where the infection is still active, and two, quantify the percentage of population that could be potentially immune, even if immunity and its duration is currently under discussions by the scientific community. On the research and innovation front, to address the coronavirus crisis, the government of Spain approved extraordinary measures and funding equaling to 30 million euros for research projects on COVID-19 and 500 million euros in the form of soft loans with grant and aid components to stimulate business-led R&D and innovation activities. As a result, so far, 18 research projects involving research centers and hospitals have been approved for funding on treatments, clinical trials, and diagnostic technologies. And additionally, another 8 business-led projects have been approved for funding so far. The National Center for Biotechnology has been allocated a 4.5 million euro provision to continue its studies on the structure of the SARS-CoV-2 and possible development of vaccines based on the identified candidates. This could open up opportunities for collaboration with international players on the vaccine development front. When it comes to international collaboration, Spain is actively pursuing international engagement and partnerships for a common front on COVID-19. Prime Minister of Spain, Pedro Sánchez, refers to solidarity and multilateralism as the only way out of this crisis, and to a collaborative approach and partnership as the unique solutions. Spanish R&D stakeholders are teaming up with international research consortia on some of the projects that have been shortlisted by the European Union as a result of the COVID flash call, which was launched under Horizon 2020, projects which were referred to by Dr. Rosario. Additionally, Spanish actors are also trying to pursue collaborative efforts under some of the other initiatives which have been already mentioned by my colleague, under COVID-19 theme calls launched under IMI, which is the Innovative Medicines Initiative, and an industrial R&D COVID-specific call launched under the Eureka program. Coming now to your second question on specific actions of interest we are pursuing or considering with India. Well, the starting point would be the 4th of April meeting between the leaderships of Spain and India on a phone conversation where they discussed the global challenges posed by the pandemic and agreed on the importance of international collaboration. With this context and in this spirit, I'll be sharing some examples of initial actions that we've been trying to pursue with India. Number one, the more natural one would be to promote COVID-19 related co-developments between Spain and India in the frame of the existing bilateral funding mechanisms, R&D funding mechanisms that we have, and open calls with the Department of Science and Technology, GITA, and the Department of Biotechnology. Several bottom-up ideas are currently being discussed in areas such as temperature monitoring systems and masks. Another area where we have tried to work on with India is sharing some of the best practices in bottom-up initiatives currently ongoing in Spain. For instance, in looking at 3D printing of medical supplies, masks, protectors, respirators as an alternate source in preparation of shortage supply scenarios. This exercise of best practice sharing and India-Spain health diplomacy build on previous exchanges on leading practices on a completely different topic, which was organ donation for transplantation in the frame of a bilateral specific MOU between Spain and India in this field. Information on 3D printing initiatives of medical supplies and particularly respirators has been shared with public health and science authorities, with engineering and medical professional boards and business-led associations here in India. Last but not least, we are seeking a clinical trial engagement with few Indian pharmaceutical companies looking at clinically validating through trials the repurposing of certain already developed drugs that could be used for COVID-19 treatment. And with all that, I think this would be what I have to share from my side at this stage. Thank you, Tanya.
Thank you, Adrian. Just on time, within the time, and lots of messages, very important ones, solidarity and international cooperation. The fact that Spain has been selected, or institutes from Spain been selected in our latest emergency calls and in this specific research to combat COVID shows also the scientific excellence that there is in Spain, and therefore an opportunity for India to build upon that with all the different actions that Spain to just offer to India, focusing on COVID-19. Thank you so much. This is a wonderful opportunity. Let me also pick up one other message that you have said, which we have not yet taken up, and that is the importance of the value chain, because I don't think that we should be misled. This is a global crisis, and people may say this is the end of globalization, or we have to do it differently. But many others have said that there will be need for more integration, economic integration, even than in the past, but maybe the conditions would be different. But we have to get the assurances. Nobody can do everything by itself. So your message here is also very valuable, taken by you, but also shared at European level. So a lot of meeting of the minds and a lot of convergence of efforts and objectives in your messages as well. Thank you for that. South of Spain, then we go to the north, not the very north, but I would like to ask Jacob Williams, who is from the innovation counselor from the embassy of Denmark in Delhi, who is normally always very close to me because we live in the same neighborhood in New Delhi. But I think you are in Copenhagen. So Copenhagen, what do you have to tell us or share with us on the Danish approach to this global crisis? Thank you, Jacob, to be with us on that. Is Jacob online?
Yes. Thank you so much, Tanya, and thank you for inviting Denmark and me to participate in this, I must say, already very successful first outreach from the EU mission. And thank you so much for everyone who's here to listen and prioritize the EU-India relationship in this situation. First of all, I think that going forward, we will see that when the different countries' performance during this crisis, which is global in nature, but is very much also fought on a national level, is going to be evaluated. We will see probably that the robustness of the health system naturally will be one indicator of success, but the other will be how each country have been able to coordinate their policies with the scientific community and really with the innovation system. And I think that is also one parameter that will be important for the success of countries of emerging on the other side of this crisis. Of course, this crisis is global in nature, and we are, I think, as a global community, reliant on our collaboration to emerge on the other side. But the Danish reaction or approach was very much to launch a number of projects funded in our national context. And several of our research funding private foundations have granted projects, so has our public foundations. And we have, in the last month, funded more than 40 scientific projects on this platform. I think now, going forward, the challenge will be how to connect these projects to partner projects in the Indian context where relevant. We are relying on WHO and the EU for the overall coordination of the scientific endeavor, but in many specific instances, we will probably benefit, all of us, for gearing the existing national projects through collaborations internationally. And our role at the embassy is in alignment with that approach. We have mostly on the direct COVID-19 agenda, busy sharing project information, linking persons, linking institutions, and linking companies on the COVID agenda, and in generally being responsive to needs arising, either on our side for coordination or on the Indian side. As I said, we are then very reliant on the EU for creating the platforms for scientific sharing and also for funding some of the lighthouse projects that we are now seeing as really forming the field, both in the Danish side and international. We also encourage our companies to participate in the emergency production, both back home, but naturally also in India. And I think that is also in light of, as what Adrian was mentioning, that some of the global supply chains have not been sufficient or have kind of broken down because of each nation's need to first supply their own health sector. Which is why each country now is focusing on gearing their own industry to help. We hope that the Danish companies will help on the Indian side in this regard too. That brings me in to what I would really like to discuss today, which is what is the ways in which we can see ourselves emerging on the other side. How can we, in a situation that has brought to the fore the need for self-reliance on the Indian side, how can we continue participating in Indian R&D with a positive input that is also sensitive to Indian needs and not only to global market needs or to the needs of our Danish companies? How can we join with India in battling what we can call the second crisis? So the crisis of emerging as a resilient society on the other side. And as we see it, there are two elements of the future in the Indian context and in the global context as well, where we imagine ourselves as relevant. One is that the foreseen increased health investment that I think will be a demand on the Indian side, but also an important way of emerging as an active and dynamic economy on the other side. And the other one is where we are really hoping that we can build on the work that has been formulated in the EU as the new Green Deal, and that we are hoping to formulate with India as a green strategic partnership, where we are focusing our R&D investment on green transition and creating sustainable processes in alignment with the Indian development agenda. So that to say is that we at the moment are looking at constructing new platforms for R&D relationships between India and Denmark that can be more focused on India's own development agenda, especially in the area of green transition. We have seen a very coordinated and impressive effort of India in mobilizing its R&D system nationally to combat COVID-19 and to inform policy. And we assume and expect that going forward, the same degree of coordination or the same ability of coordination will make R&D one of the drivers of India's approach to developing its economy and society to emerge successfully from the COVID-19 crisis. for that reason, we think that a successful approach from the Danish side will be to invest collectively our government resources, our R&D resources, both in public and private form, and our company resources in a stronger coordination with the Indian development agendas. And I think that we can probably all agree that India is a country of such an importance on the global scale that if we want to see a successful rebound of the global economy, but also if we want to perhaps see a rebound that has a more sustainable nature than we have seen so far, India will have to be part of the solutions that we are creating. For that reason, I think that both at the European level and at the Danish level, we will see a need for engaging much more closely with the Indian side, and probably also for investing our resources more significantly in coordinating our R&D effort. In that last point, I would like to also suggest to the European Union, European Commission, that perhaps India could have a little bit of a special focus in our programs going forward, both when it comes to finding global impact as a key element in shaping our evaluation criteria for our research programs in Europe, but also perhaps in working together with India on data legislation, on the ethics of science, and especially also, I think, in strengthening some of the incubation EU-India initiatives that we had already. From the Danish side, we are definitely planning to bring in a more integrated effort of placing us within an R&D based development in India, focused on the green, focused on creating a stronger health system and a globally significant health industry. We see it as a situation where the pandemic will be on the horizon for a long time going forward, and an effort will be to build sustainable and resilient societies. And I think for that, as mentioned, to be a globally resilient, globally sustainable society, we need India to play probably the role of a site for the formulation of those global solutions that we need going forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jacob. You see how diverse Europe is. We had only 2 member states, different inputs, but I think we all have the same expectation of the output, and that is, or the same way to do it, more coordination at all levels. Of course, what Jacob said was also very important, to bring in private foundations, other stakeholders to that same objective. Thank you for relying on EU level, World Health Organization. We also believe that that is the right approach. Your suggestion that we need to connect, and we are looking at possibilities to connect what is done at European level and India. So we take it, we are encouraged to further take that up. But I think, Jacob, if you would agree, what I extracted from all your messages is the most important one, or that you have, is that we also should continue to invest and look at the other aspects of society, greening the economy, and we should not yet do everything to combat that crisis. COVID-19, but we also shouldn't forget about our climate change crisis, and therefore in parallel, and they're mutually reinforcing, because there's also a lot of research being done on some of the causes of this pandemic, and that is also part of the Green Deal challenge that we have set up at European level. So again, different starting point, but outcome the same, meeting of the minds. Increased coordination is the name of the game, and thank you for the suggestions on how to do that, but also very much appreciated that we also should continue to invest and look at the Green Deal. We've heard a lot on research, innovation, but we haven't really heard about the role of the innovation actors, like incubators, accelerators, startups, and yet they also have a role in general, but many countries nationally, multilaterally, globally have already set up pitch events, hackathons to see how they can contribute to this, to combat the COVID-19. And I don't think that we can have any more better than Lina Tomasz, who is an expert in the innovation ecosystem, and especially in the cooperation between Europe and India. She's been instrumental in setting up and implementing the EU-India network of incubators. And I trust that Lina has not sufficiently heard, but will enlighten us on the role of the innovators, the startups, the incubators, what has done, and especially how can we valorize the partnership that we have built up already towards this COVID-19. Lina, thank you for being with us, and could you tell us a little bit more about the EU-India network of incubators, what we do in innovation, but especially how that dimension can help combating COVID-19 as well? Lina, are you there?
Hello?
Yes, the floor is yours.
Okay, great. Yeah, thank you. Sorry, I was on mute. Thank you, Tanya, for inviting me to this webinar to share, what we are doing. In fact, as I was listening to all the other speakers, it really brought to my mind the reason why we set out to, build this network of incubators. It's really to come together, Europe and India, to solve global challenges. And this is the time that we really need to work together to react and respond, to what's happening in both our regions, and work together to find the solutions. And given that we have this platform ready, we have been now thinking, since March and now April, what, kind of stock taking on what's going on and what can be done. And now, before I delve into what we are planning or have in mind for combating COVID-19, maybe for the sake of the audience, I just introduce what is the Europe-India Innovation Partnership, because really this is a program of the European Commission that was launched in April of 2018, so fairly new, and it's primarily aimed at incubators and accelerators, and where we are trying to build partnerships, and create a network for knowledge exchange and startup exchange between European and Indian incubators as well as their startups. So even though the initiative is really sector agnostic, it's kind of been designed to bring together incubators that work, towards solving global thematic challenges, whether it is clean tech and climate change, food and agri-tech, and of course, the topic of the day, health. And so we have, so I'm a part of the team of consultants and experts who are really helping to kind of build this network, as well as manage the actions, help build the partnerships across, the incubators and the various other stakeholders. What have we done so far? I mean, in the last almost 2 years, we have built a we've had 3 networking events. and brought together about 45 incubators to really meet together and develop plans of actions to work together on various programs and projects which involve really supporting each other to develop joint actions for taking their startups to each other's geographies, looking at projects for co-creation, looking at opportunities for startups to partner and also soft land into new geographies. So those are all the kind of actions that are being planned by the European and Indian incubators. And we, in fact, so far have 27 such plans of actions that are being developed across the board, across areas like, digital technologies, clean tech, health, medical devices, agri-tech solutions, and so on and so forth. And in fact, in our last event in Delhi, where we had about, 10 European and 10 Indian incubators really sit through a 2-day workshop of, getting to know each other and developing these plans of actions, we thought about the idea of coming together on thematic areas. So, in Delhi in November last year, we focused on how can we look at food waste as a global challenge, and how can startups, in both the geographies from all the incubators really come together to share their solutions to adopters, whether they are corporates or governments in Europe or India. How do we kind of bring the startups to collaborate and work together in a platform? So we launched thereafter a thematic platform on food waste that we are now building up, and we have, I think, about 47 food waste startups from Europe and India who are currently who have shared their interest to really deploy their solutions across Europe and India, and we are presenting them to various corporates and governments around the world, really, to see how they can be deployed for actual use. So, having said that, we are now, looking at broadening this network and involving multiple other stakeholders, be it investors, mentors, as well as corporates. And, and in the last couple of months, we have been interacting with the incubator networks to really find out what is it that they have been doing within, for the COVID-19, and what is it that they would like to do collaboratively. So we have really found in a very, very, it's been very exciting to note that several of the incubators from the network have been independently, I think almost since February, planning initiatives around COVID-19. And one such initiative, which has a pretty global impact, was a kind of launched by an Estonian incubator called Technopole. I think many of you may have heard about the global hack, which was organized at a global scale to identify startups from around the world that had solutions for COVID, not just related to health and the medical aspects of it, but also about livelihoods, business continuity, work from home, tracking, testing, managing. How do we really prepare for the new world and what we are all talking about as the new normal? Because I think from all of us and the way our lives have changed in the last couple of months, we are all anticipating that life at home and life at work is not going to be the same. We have to prepare for a new normal. And so we had, there were startups really proposing solutions for all of these areas, which is on socioeconomic impact as well as health. And in fact, the Global Hack had its own India event called the Coronathon India, and we had multiple Indian stakeholders also be a part of that. I was part of a couple of the pitching sessions, and it was very exciting to see that in literally 2 months there have been startups from India who are developing various type of excellent solutions which could be of great use here in India and around the world. So similarly, other incubators like WSL from Belgium have launched, programs across, on COVID. And in India, we've seen some exciting projects being launched in Karnataka, Bangalore, where I come from, by the KTech, which is the KTech Karnataka Innovation by the government of Karnataka, and organizations like CCamp, a biotech-related incubator in Bangalore, and then IIT Sign Mumbai, one of the co-working spaces, 91 Springboard, everybody kind of rising to the occasion to come up with their own programs. So that's been really exciting to kind of understand what the community is really doing. But now it's also the time about what the Europe-India partnership can really do. And how can we, as a network that's already been created, really respond very, very, very proactively and productively to solve this problem? And so at one hand, we are looking at getting the incubators to see how they can collaborate with each other, either at the European level or at the Indian level or at the Europe-India level. So we are actually in discussions with the incubators now, directly understanding what they would like to do. And additionally, also exploring the option of launching a thematic platform around COVID-19, which will look into health and socio-economic impact solutions to combat this pandemic. And the idea would be to collect all of the startups and their solutions that are coming out of this network, bring and share it in a presentable and easy to find way for adopters. Now, the question is that there would be governments, corporates, other SMEs, other startups that are looking for partnerships to really provide the solutions, create business models, create even non-profit models to take these things forward. So we are working towards how this can be developed. And as we are a platform of, we are consultative, we work along with the incubators to also gain their ideas. And in May, we will be now hosting a virtual event on the 27th of May for the incubators of the second cohort to really talk about this a little bit more, but also move into action as soon as possible, because it's really not, this is not like a problem that's waiting to be solved. It's here and now, and whatever we can do now is what is going to matter for all of us going forward. So I think these are the few things I wanted to share, Tanya, and also the fact that apart from the incubator network, the Europe-India Innovation Network also hosts an innovation platform which consists of all of the European member states and the innovation actors in India who want to work collaboratively.
Sorry to interrupt, Lena. Sorry to interrupt, but we also need to leave some time for questions and answers.
Sure.
And I think it's better absorption capacity of concentration to concentrate on the network of incubators, which I thought was very useful. It showed that in our network, which are about 80 actors from both sides, we have really scouted very good ones, because they have all been excelling already in one fora or another. So I would really encourage you now to valorize their expertise and their commitment to combat COVID-19 in that network between Europe and India. So we certainly will take up your suggestion that that should be the next step. And also what you said is that not necessarily focusing on COVID-19 action, but the broader spectrum, the preparing for tomorrow, because it's not going to be like it is today or yesterday. So that was also a very important message from your side. And of course, for that, we will need the creative and entrepreneurial spirit that we have in India, but we can say that is, and thanks to this network, has been matched with European incubators as well. Very sorry that I cut at you, but technology would otherwise do, because we have a given time. And unless you had another concluding remark, I would like to pass on to the questions and answers. We received several questions, but I think we will have to pick and choose some which are generic enough and to that. So, Lena, would you like to say something more?
Tanya, can I interject?
Absolutely.
I wanted to see with Lena now. You finished, Lena, right?
Sure. So I'm done. In fact, I'm done, Tanya.
No,
The incubators, I'm done. So please proceed.
Yes, certainly. Welcome to Dr. Anita Gupta, which is the innovation expert from the Indian side. Thank you, Anita, that you are connected. Welcome. Please go ahead.
for the seminar, I think with the series of webinars going on, Indian startups, even in the research and innovation space, do really require what's happening around, what India is doing, how we could, and you rightly said, collaboration is now the new normal, without which we are not able, will not be able to address the key issues which this global pandemic has thrown upon to all of us. And since this is a new, you can say, scenario, the preparedness obviously was low, and innovation holds the key. Science and technology and innovation holds the key to actually come out with these solutions. Now, these solutions are actually short term, medium term, and long term. So, long term obviously are more research driven. All vaccine development work will be long term. It's a long gestation period, lot of research, then clinical trials, everything has to be in place. We'll just share about, since I am a part of all the key task forces which Government of India has put in. As you must have read, Government of India is totally on the war footing to address the current challenge which we face through science and technology. And the 3-4 verticals which we are focusing on is obviously starting from the diagnostic side. We have, I think, supported more than 10 startups currently, including the MyLab. Then there is a Seagull Bio Solutions from NCL Venture Center. So actually, you will be surprised to note the way Government of India has sprung into action and really done remarkable. We have allocated close to nearly 300 crores only to solve COVID-19 solutions. I think what Lena mentioned was a call. I think 7 incubators have already given their call, but she forgot to mention the IT sign is a DST program conceived in flat 2 days and approved. That is a Kavach program. It should be rightly actually given the credit. It is a DST Kavach program implemented through Sign ITB. So that's the correction I wanted to make. Kavach, through Kavach call, we have been able to garner about 826 applications from startups. These are in the 5 verticals which I have identified. First is the ventilators and respiratory aids. Second is PPE. Third is sanitizers and disinfectants. Fourth one is informatics side. And fifth one is on the diagnostic kits and therapeutics. So these are actually some of the very exciting solutions have come, and we have put together a very strong framework to evaluate, do the due diligence part, because all these require a strong conformation to standards, certification, regulatory approvals. All diagnostic kits have to be approved by ICMR. All PPE, sanitizer, disinfectant, ventilator is the complete responsibility of our DRDO. Related to vaccines, Department of Biotechnology is steering the whole effort. Related to drugs, whether it's a repurposed drugs or it's all complete responsibility of CSIR, whereas diagnostic kits, DST is leading the whole initiative in terms of not only mapping the efforts, also doing the matchmaking part. See, after we have mapped, we have identified and zeroed on, ready to be deployed in the market. Who will bring the orders? From where the orders will come? If at all it needs to be ramping up the productions, how do we connect with them with the industry leaders, or like AMTs at like Vizag, where ventilators and PPs and diagnostic kits could be manufactured. So all these actually now complete landscape ecosystem is now fully geared. I think in next 10 to 15 days, you will hear some very exciting stories for our collective fight on technology versus virus. So I think we are very upbeat, very confident. Our incubators have actually risen to the occasion, and this is the best time to really showcase what India can do, what collectively, as Tanya has pointed out, how collaboration can really work out, and we can really collectively solve this global problem on a war footing, on a rapid response and fast track mode. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm thanking you, Dr. Anita Gupta. It's not, the focus was more the showcase at the EU level. That's why Lena did not include the Indian program. But I think the lesson learned from this is the next step is we will have to see where we can make these connections. Everybody has called about connections. Everybody has called about strengthening coordination, international cooperation, finding solutions. It doesn't matter who between whom, but definitely, of course, we are mostly now interested. And if we have India and EU on the same boat, that's a very large community. So we should definitely pick up your invitation to look more at what you have done and see if we can create more synergies. And we will certainly do that in preparation of our action that we want to do within the EU-India Incubator Network, where there are many of the DST, of the incubators supported by India. But if you would agree, we can take that to the
Sure.
section. Because I'm a bit stressed that suddenly technology will decide that this session is closed. We received several questions. One was more or less if Rosanna, if you are still with us, and if I can summarize several questions we received, but they would come down to, first of all, if we do more calls and if we have more actions, will there be possibilities of cooperation for India? And do we already have an idea on what the next areas of research will be? I'm grouping the questions. We received a lot of questions, and a lot of people believe that the focus should be rather the cause than the solution. It's true that we have said a lot, and we need to find out more about this virus. So are we doing already some research on the fundamental issue problem? And also, would we do research or actions, and I think you already said that in your introduction, which focus more on the socio-economic aspects, impact of COVID-19. I believe that with these three questions to Rosanna, I more or less summarize a large number of questions. Rosanna, are you still with us?
Yes, Tanya, I am. Thank you. So, yes, indeed, I noticed among the questions that were on the chat, a question from Devika Madalli saying whether Indian institutes can apply for projects related to COVID to the European Commission. So the answer is yes, in the sense that the program Horizon 2020 is open to participants from all over the world, including, of course, India and including the COVID-19 call. So when we had applications in the first call of the 30th of January, there were no Indian participants, but hopefully there will be in the next calls that, as I said, there is nothing concrete at the moment. There is discussion, but I would like to link this to Tanya, to the document that I mentioned, this ERA, European Research Area versus Corona. And under point 3, it is indicated that new funding for innovative and rapid health approaches to respond to coronavirus have to be put in place. And this new funding will likely cover areas such as social and economic impact, but also medical technologies and ICT applications, and also health system preparedness. So these areas are indicated as a plan for further investment on COVID-19. I don't know whether I answered all of your questions, but these I think were relevant, in my opinion.
Very much so, and thank you for also pointing out to me where I can find the further information. But as you said, it's under discussion, and India can be sure that we always, I'm there of me to be sure that India can also participate at the right conditions and at the right time. That is to be discussed and is under consideration. But we are coherent. This is a global crisis. We need to find global solutions, and so we want our global partners to be part of finding the solution. Maybe, I don't know if you can abuse of your knowledge because you're also a scientist, but that is a question that I have also received privately before. Do we have enough information on the virus as such, or you know, more? Are we doing research on that? Like, why suddenly has this popped up? And on this, we get a lot of that question. You too, as a private person, and I have received several questions on that. So if you could abuse a little bit of your scientific knowledge as well. Are we doing research on that? What is your view?
Well, I think I don't have a view, and yes, although I have a scientific background, but this requires really a specific knowledge on the area. Among the projects that we are funding are in different areas, and many things, of course, are already known about the virus, but there is the problem if the virus may change, and this, of course, may delay the development of a suitable vaccine. So there are many things around it, but I would refrain myself for expressing any opinion because it would be only personal. So I would stop there. Thank you.
But I think that is useful as well. It shows the complexity and the taken by surprise in this whole pandemic. So we can't, per definition, not answer all the questions. I don't know if Vivek has picked up questions that should be replied by one or the other panelists, or while we are still together. Vivek?
I think the relevant questions you summarized at the beginning, so I don't think so anything else we can address from the chat, unless Anil has spotted something.
No, Vivek, I think I agree with you, and Tanya has very well summarized all the questions in the beginning, so mostly all of them have been done.
So can I have a final question? I personally thought that it was a very useful exchange, starting with showcasing, which is not showing off, the amount of things that we do at European level, the meeting of the minds, but bringing this all to the next level, which is also what the EU is doing, which is why the President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, has been willing to take the lead in an initiative that has been launched by the World Health Organization, which is the online pledge event, where we have maybe many questions at our level, but there's been an expert study, a study by experts and scientists to identify the gaps in research, in science, and the funding that is required. So we want to collectively address that. And that is kind of a prelude to that event that will be launched on the 4th of May. But that or another topic, because I find that there was a lot of momentum, that people found it interesting to share that information, came up with ideas, and I would like to ask to the organizers, Anil and Matej and others, if you also find it interesting, if we would have a possibility to do another webinar on how science, research, innovation, technology, race to vaccines, global actions, in which also the EU plays a role, could be organized in the future, because that would help responding to a lot of questions and information that we have heard today. And I hope that this note that the answer will be yes, so then it's easier for me to say I'm looking forward to see you again. So unless there is any pressing other a need for another question, a last comment. I think Anil, we are about to close this event, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you very much to all the panelists. Thank you to you, Tanya, for moderating this whole session. And thank you to all the members of the audience for listening in so patiently and so attentively. It's been a bit of a challenge to organize this, but in the end, everything has worked out very well. I'm really happy that we had a good discussion for the last 1.5 hours. A very useful discussion with some really eminent panelists who know what they are talking about. And so therefore, this is a very encouraging sign also for the EU-India webinar series, which we have launched today. As I mentioned in the beginning, we will be over the next couple of days and weeks organizing more webinars on different subjects, different aspects of EU-India relations, going beyond research and innovation into other areas as well, for which the delegation is responsible. But to the members of the audience in this particular panel, a very big thank you to all of you. If in any case, you had asked a question and it could not be answered, you can always, send us an email. You can get in touch with us, and Tanya and Vivek and all of us are there to help you to provide whatever answers we can to the questions that you might have. So with that, I think, thank you very much to all the panelists. And Tanya, we can say goodbye for now.
Yes, I would like to say goodbye in the French way. It's au revoir, which means that I want to see you again, even if it is through technology.
Bonjour, bonjour.
Oui, namaste, bonjour, thank you. And no, I, as you said, it's been always a bit of a challenge to do that, but so we broke the ice for the EU diplomacy, and it could not be on a better subject than science, research, and innovation. Whether we want it or not, it's at the heart of this pandemic, or at the heart of the outcome to this pandemic. And so this webinar certainly will contribute to it, since we have heard it required increased efforts, coordinated effort, international efforts. And so you will certainly hear from us again. We count on you, because it's only together that we can overcome this very peculiar situation of our lifetime that we are in. Thank you so much